The evolution of this hardware has just been, meteoric, right? It's faster, it is lighter. It is actually at the point where it's part of it is driving the manufacturing process for mobile chipsets, right? To have this advanced 3D component in there from, Snapdragon and Qualcomm and all these manufacturers.
Welcome to the Stantec.io podcast, where we speak to our scientists, designers, engineers, and architects who are combining subject matter expertise with cutting-edge technology to develop solutions that can solve the problems of today and tomorrow. My name is Dave Roberts.
And I'm Mike Arsenault. Earlier this year, Apple launched the Vision Pro headset and catapulted the concept of extended reality, or XR, into mainstream culture. Now, that doesn't mean worldwide adoption is around the corner, but XR technology continues to thrive and evolve. Its potential applications in the AEC industry offer exciting possibilities for problem solving and client collaboration. And joining us to discuss those possibilities is Chuck Lounsberry.
Chuck is Stantec's visualization technology leader, and he's based in Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome to the podcast, Chuck.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Chuck, let's start very wide with a very wide lens. What exactly encompasses extended reality technology?
Yeah, extended reality actually is a really big term. Like if we're starting high level, it's as high level as it gets. Extended reality encompasses the worlds of virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, all under sort of one big umbrella term. But fundamentally what it is, it's the use of this technology to combine your real world environment and real world experiences with virtual environments and virtual experiences to some degree or another.
So Chuck, what was your first exposure to extended reality?
Well, like I said, extended reality being a big term, I think the first place where we were actually, or where I was involved with it, was back when Oculus was a Kickstarter. I think it's 2012, 2013. It was really the sort of first headset that you could buy, like everyday users could buy and be part of, and put your own content in it and have your own experience, which was, at the time was crazy. Like cell phones had been out for a long time, but they still didn't have a lot of intelligence behind them. Like there were iPhones, but you didn't have a real like mobile 3D experience yet. So when the Quest came out, it really was a game changer. And it was one of those moments where you started to realize that when you put it on and you saw your data and your models for the first time, that this wasn't just new technology. This was a whole new experience. You were, as my background is I've been in 3D my whole adult life, imaging, 3D models, animations, all that good stuff. And really, this was the first time you could experience something that wasn't built in that one-to-one relationship. So while it was new technology and it was this totally different experience, it became immediately apparent to me, like as a designer, that this is the way that people should be experiencing design products, right? This is the tangible personal experience that really has a chance to affect significantly the quality of your design and how that gets articulated in the real world. So it's a long time ago. They were, in hindsight, looking back at them now, they're like in museums. They're so bad. They were like low fresh rate. People got sick. It was a bit of a success and disaster all at the same time. But it really was sort of a foundational moment that changed the way that XR has evolved through the past dozen years or so.
So, Chuck, I think it's fair to say that you are an early adopter, having your first exposure back in 2012 with the Oculus headset. So we've seen kind of examples of the Apple Vision Pro, and this is still kind of an early iteration before really it's going to be mass consumption by a worldwide audience. It still is relatively niche. But how has the technology evolved from that first experience, the clunky headset that you mentioned that's now in a museum, to what we have now just over a decade later and where we might be going?
Oh, I mean, the better question is, how hasn't it changed? It's just gotten better in every way, and in somewhat unpredictable fashion has in many ways gotten less expensive. Like Apple Vision Pro aside, like the evolution of this hardware has just been meteoric, right? It's faster, it is lighter. It is actually at the point where it's part of it is driving the manufacturing process for mobile chipsets, right? To have this advanced 3D component in there from, Snapdragon and Qualcomm and all these manufacturers. So it has literally changed the mobile world across the globe, right? It's just better in every way possible. And if you take the Apple Vision Pro as the current sort of lead of evolution, it's lighter, it's more comfortable. They're really positioning it to be a more long-term, like you wear it for more hours a day type of device, right? Because they understand that the commodity of your data has evolved to the point where you can access this and have need for this as often as you change design applications in your day-to-day life, right? Like every time you would open up Revit or Outlook or Teams, you could do so in a headset. And I think that's really where they're sort of positioning the future of XR. So I guess to circle back and answer your question is that they've gotten better in every way imaginable to the point where I think major players in the industry are looking at them for adoption to the level of a cell phone, right? They want it to be that sort of commodity device that you have with you.
And you touched on it briefly before, but what are some of the other typical use case examples for using extended reality in the AEC industry?
The AEC industry has been a little slow to sort of adopt XR in some ways, but in the past 5 years or so, basically since probably 2023, they have really hit their stride. The VR technology, the XR technology came out of a really successful, air quotes successful experience during COVID, right? Where everybody had this isolation period where XR and VR and AR actually turned into these tools that people were using to collaborate while living remotely, right? And so there's this really cool synergy that came from the technology during COVID that really helped bring people together, not just designers in the AEC space. So since 2022, 23, those tools have actually been refined to like better business tools. And, there's historically this VR experience that's a little bit easier to accomplish for a lot of people. It takes place in a headset, requires a 3D modeling software, and it allows people to have this really significant, really detailed, really immersive experience in the work that people are designing, right? So AEC, the AE part of it is just filled with people who are building content. They're designing bridges and hospitals and train stations, but fundamentally what they're building as far as XR is concerned is content. And the software has evolved, like the software solutions have evolved to basically start processing that content into VR-friendly environments. So you have off-the-shelf applications like Enscape and Twinmotion and Lumion who you push a button and you can be in VR. So you have these really immersive and detailed experiences in VR, which is great for stakeholder engagement, for, individual design review. But the fundamental downside to those is that they are individual experiences. So the more significant role that we've seen XR playing in the AEC space has been in multi-user VR, which is all wireless. It involves streaming your design files, whether it's a Revit file or Navisworks file, to multiple headsets at one time, and then we would all meet in that model. We would meet inside of our design project at a 1-to-1 scale and have conversations about it. And they've gotten smarter about issue tracking and revision tracking, and it all feeds back into common data platforms. It has really positioned itself well to become our default ad hoc design review solution.
So let's move on, Chuck, from current applications to where we could go in the future, because we went through those typical use cases. I'm thinking, what are some atypical use cases that are really kind of get you excited about where we could go in the AE industry utilizing XR technology? I mean, you just gave us a laundry list, and I mean, it sounds amazing on the surface there, but where else could we go as people become more familiar and comfortable with this technology?
It's a great question, and it's one that I spend a lot of time thinking about. But it's kind of like wrapping your arms around the ocean. It's like how big can this get? And it's really fundamentally like it's a hard thing to sort of articulate into a few pieces. But if we look at the total process of how we work here at Stantec, and we look at it through the lens of XR, right? We look at content, which we have 28,000 people who are building content, which is fantastic, right? But then we have an experience, and then we have delivery. So we have to kind of figure out, what do we want to do to leverage the content to deliver a better experience? And we've got a few things in place that are coming up that are pretty exciting, that aren't just theoretical. They're real bits of technology, where we're building out systems that ingest large-scale Revit files or Navisworks files and import them into a real-time gaming engine. We use the Unreal Engine for a lot of our development. And then from there, we're able to package it up based on whatever your work case is, as interactive VR training, right? The client has paid us for design services, or are paying us for design services, where the byproduct is a really nice model, a really nice 3D model full of good detail. We're going to take and augment that model with an experience generation, where we'll be able to generate technical training, emergency response training, safety training, say for dangerous spaces, confined spaces. The idea here is that as more and more gets virtualized into this world, and it becomes accessible through these devices that are becoming more and more accessible, the way in which we work and the environment in which we work is following suit. And that is becoming a bit more digital and a lot more virtual. So again, it's one of those answers where it's like, it's changing a lot. There's a lot of really exciting stuff coming, not just for AEC products, but the AEC industry in general.
So how much tech prowess would clients and customers actually need to adopt XR technology into their processes? And how can Stantec help support them?
That's really the big question, right? Is how much of an investment does this take? And while part of my answer wants to be it takes very little, like it's all very approachable, I know the right answer is, as always, it depends. So anyone right now, anybody could go and buy a commercially available VR headset that costs about $500. They could get a commercially available rendering package that costs anywhere from $500 to $3,000. Set it up, plug it in, and within a day be having a bit of an XR experience. We're at an interesting point in the technology where everything is very accessible. The interesting part about it is, like, we're a company of designers. We're a company of intellectuals. Like, this is off-the-shelf applications get us 60% of the way there, but the remaining development is interesting, right? Is really was what you get paid for. It's that individualized thought process. So you could start for $1,000 and have an XR experience, and the impedance to adoption is low, right? Your return on investment is pretty high. There was a study that came out that says RFIs detected early in the design process equate to about $750 worth of construction cost savings. So by the time you find 2 RFIs with this technology, or with any XR technology, you've more than paid for the cost of the hardware and software. So it doesn't have to be a big risk. The adoption part, like the building experiences, is something that takes a little more effort, right? Like, we're lucky enough at Stantec to have a number of application developers and gaming engine developers who take care of a lot of these really beautiful experiences that we build for people. And that, like anything else, is a design project unto itself. Like, you might be designing a hospital, but these people are designing the experience of how that hospital design intent will be relayed to you. And I feel like that's the part where it can become expensive, because it's another level of design, right? Like, anyone can take it out, plug it in, and that's fine. But to create new content, to create new applications, to create custom workflows, there is a little bit of work that goes behind there. Now, that being said, most of the people who are on my team who are building these custom experiences are not programmers by nature. Like, they're architects, or they're civil engineers, or bridge engineers who have taken the time to learn this and have become thoughtful about how we design experiences. So it's not so hard that you need to go back and retool in college or, go back to school for it. But it does take some time. There is a little bit of a learning curve, and it's a lot of borrowing from other industries that aren't in the AEC space. So like learning to program a video games is pretty much where half of my team spent the last couple of years. So it's all very fun, all very good, all very useful when put in the right hands, but it can get expensive if you're not going to take the off-the-shelf solution.
So Chuck, in your mind, what's the biggest hurdle that XR technology has to overcome before we reach that worldwide adoption that I alluded to in the beginning of this podcast?
The mobile XR market, like through the mobile devices, not just headsets, but mobile device markets in 2023 was $18 billion, right? So part of the stigma that we work against, or we work to override, is that these are like gimmicks, that these are toys. And you don't spend $18 billion on, as an industry, and limit yourself to entertainment, right? There are very valid business applications that we are implementing now. It's projected to go to $30 billion by 2027. So you're talking about, a fairly significant increase over the next 3 years, just in terms of adoptions, in terms of application developments, in terms of content. Like the XR world is poised to grow significantly, 30% or whatever 20 billion to 30 billion is in just 3 years. Like, it's phenomenal what the growth has been, but also that it doesn't show any signs of stopping. And if my goal is to have a headset on every desk, they cost as much as an external monitor. Why not? Why would we as designers deprive ourselves as that tool, right? Why would we opt out of not having this tool that could provide new insight and data for our projects, right? That are constantly evolving. Why wouldn't we do that? Like, what's the danger of adoption at this point?
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of extended reality within the AEC industry. It's been incredibly insightful to hear how XR is transforming design process and enhancing collaboration. And obviously the potential for this technology is immense and continues to evolve and redefine how we conceptualize our built environments. So Chuck, thank you once again for being part of the Stantec.io podcast.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was a lot of fun.
And thank you for listening. Future episodes will continue to explore how digital solutions are shaping our world. In the meantime, you can also visit our website at www.stantec.io for more information.